I and my wife have been married for 7 years, together for 10. I never thought I'd be posting here about my wife leaving me and our 4-year-old son for her boss. I'm still in shock. Some background, sorry if this gets long, trying to include only relevant details. I used to be a chef at a respected restaurant in Seattle. I was recognized in the local food scene. When our son Marco was born 4 years ago, we discovered he had severe food allergies that required constant monitoring. My wife Caroline was a paralegal with steady income and benefits, so we decided I'd step back from long restaurant hours to be Marco's primary caregiver. 2 years ago, Caroline landed an opportunity at a law firm in a small coastal Washington town. She was very excited, talking about how this was her chance to advance her career and maybe go to law school eventually. I supported her completely. That's what partners do, right? We moved, found a modest house we could barely afford on mostly her salary, and Marco settled in with the local medical specialists who could manage his condition. The town is quite isolated. The nearest major city is a 2-hour drive, which eliminated my career options. I've been running a small home cooking service for a few families to keep my skills sharp and bring in some money, but it's nothing compared to before. I was fine with that sacrifice because Marco needs consistency with his doctors here. Things were going well for the first 6 months after the move. Then everything changed. Over the past 18 months, Caroline has turned into someone I barely recognize. She started working later hours, at first occasionally, then every night. Her entire wardrobe changed. Everything had to be designer labels. She became critical of our home after she used to like it. She grew distant from me and Marco. Our son would get excited when he heard her car, but she would leave to decompress. I tried talking to her about it multiple times, probably annoying her with how often I brought it up. I suggested date nights, family counseling, even a weekend away to reconnect. She always had excuses about work pressure or being too tired. I wondered if she was regretting our arrangement, but whenever I mentioned it, she'd insist everything was fine and I was being paranoid. Maybe I was overreacting, I don't know. Then last week, I was paying bills. I handle all the household management while she brings in most of the income, and noticed payments to a loan company I didn't recognize. I dug deeper and discovered Caroline had taken out personal loans totaling $27,000 over the past year. We're not rich. We have mortgage payments, Marco's medical expenses, and had been saving for his future. So on Thursday night, I waited for Caroline at the kitchen table. She was 3 hours late, no call, no text. Marco was asleep upstairs after asking when Mommy was coming home. I waited and looked at the bank statements. When she finally walked in around 10 p.m., I noticed her new haircut, a designer outfit, and new perfume. She seemed surprised to see me still up. I tried to stay calm. I slid the bank statement across the table and asked about the loans. Her expression changed in seconds from surprise to anger. She said she needed to invest in herself to compete at the firm and that I wouldn't understand the pressures of professional appearance. When I pointed out $27,000 is way more than a wardrobe budget, she just laughed. Maybe if you hadn't given up your career to stay home with our son, I wouldn't have to carry all the financial pressure, she said. I was hurt. Giving up my career wasn't a whim. It was a decision we made together for our son's well-being. I reminded her of this, and then we argued. She packed a suitcase while complaining she had been held back by family obligations. She told me she had been seeing Richard, a senior partner at her firm. She called him ambitious and a real man, and said I was too domestic and embarrassing to introduce to colleagues. She said my care for our son and my small business wasn't ambitious enough. Still fuming about this, Tiba. I stood in shock watching her pack. Before she left, she said she had never connected with motherhood and that Marco would be better off with me. Then she left. After she left, I went to Marco's room and watched him sleep, torn between anger at Caroline and fear about how to support him. I'm stranded in this town with limited job prospects, specialized skills, and a young child with medical needs. I've built my small business around Marco's schedule, and moving would mean finding new doctors. At 3 a.m., Caroline texted that she won't be coming back and wants a divorce. She's staying at Richard's house and will be in touch about arrangements. Just like that, after 10 years together and a child, I'm a single dad in a town where my support network is zero. I haven't told Marco yet that his mom isn't coming back. How do you explain to a 4-year-old that his mother chose a new life without him? I'm lost and scared and furious all at once. I gave up everything to support her career and take care of our son, and this is how she repays us. I haven't told anyone else about this situation yet because I'm still in shock and trying to figure out what to do next. Any advice from people who've navigated sudden single parenthood in a remote location with limited career options would be appreciated. Now for the first update. It's been 2 months since my original post, and I never expected the support I received. Thousands of messages and comments. I'm still working through them. I promised an update once I had more clarity on the situation, so here it is. First off, thank you all for the advice, kind words, and offers of help. Even the person who offered to take care of my wife and her boss. I appreciate the sentiment, but no thanks, lol. I'll try to respond to comments, but I have a 4-year-old, legal paperwork, and I'm trying not to fall apart most days. These past 2 months have been stressful. Caroline has officially moved in with Richard. Despite their relationship being against firm policy, guess rules don't apply when you're sleeping with a senior partner. She's only seen Marco twice in the entire time she's been gone, even though she lives barely 20 minutes away. Both visits lasted less than an hour, and Marco was confused and upset afterward. I've been trying to maintain a routine for Marco, but he keeps asking when mommy is coming home. How do you explain to a 4-year-old that his mother chose her boss over him? I've been following the advice many of you gave about being honest but age-appropriate. The child psychologist who commented with specific phrases to use was incredibly helpful. Now for the financial situation. While going through our joint accounts to prepare for the divorce proceedings, I discovered Caroline has been taking lavish weekend trips with Richard to Portland and Vancouver. She spent over $5,000 on hotels and restaurants in the past month alone. Meanwhile, she's claiming she can't afford to help with Marco's medical expenses or our mortgage. I've been draining my savings just to keep us afloat. My parents flew in from New Jersey about 3 weeks ago and are staying with us for a month to help. They're first-generation Italian immigrants and have strong opinions about Caroline's behavior. At first, they were upset with me, saying I must have failed as a provider if my wife left. Thanks, Dad. But after seeing the situation firsthand and spending time with Marco, they've changed their tune. My mom has been cooking a lot and taking care of Marco while I handle the legal stuff. Speaking of legal stuff, we had our first mediation session yesterday. I was in a conference room at the courthouse while my mom watched Marco in the waiting area. I'd spent hours preparing financial documents, childcare schedules, and notes about Marco's medical needs. I was nervous, but felt prepared. Then Caroline walked in, and I barely recognized her. She's had even more cosmetic work done, definitely lip fillers and something with her cheeks, was dressed in a suit that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage, and was speaking with an affected accent she's developed since working at the firm. She wouldn't even make eye contact with me. The mediator started by addressing custody arrangements. I explained that Marco needs stability and routine, especially with his medical condition, and that I've been his primary caregiver since birth. I suggested Caroline could have regular visitation as long as she actually showed up consistently. Her response shocked me. She said, "I'm thinking every other weekend might be too much commitment right now. Richard and I are building a new life that doesn't easily accommodate children." I mentioned that Marco cries for her every night, asking when Mama is coming home. Her face was completely unmoved. When we moved on to finances, her lawyer had the audacity to argue that I chose to be unemployed and should find full-time work rather than expecting Caroline to fund my lifestyle choices. I explained our family decision for me to be Marco's caregiver because of his severe medical needs, the remote location limiting job options, and how Caroline had supported this arrangement when it benefited her career. Caroline suggested selling our house to liquidate assets since her name is on the mortgage, the house that is the only stability Marco has left, the house she hasn't made payments on for 2 months. To those who told me to document everything, thank you. Having those missed payment records was crucial. During a break in the session, I overheard Caroline on the phone with Richard. She was laughing about how I actually thought we were going to co-parent and that she's so over playing mommy to a clingy kid. I recorded part of it. Some of you suggested I start documenting everything, and you were right. When we reconvened, I presented my documentation: Caroline's hidden loans, proof of her absence from Marco's life, medical statements detailing our son's care requirements, and records of her missed mortgage payments. I also played the recording of her phone conversation. The mediator, who had been neutral until this point, suggested a temporary arrangement heavily favoring my custody while noting that Caroline's financial obligations would need court review. She seemed troubled by Caroline's indifference toward Marco. As we were leaving, Caroline told me that her father believes I trapped her with a baby and damaged her career potential. She said her entire family is backing her decision and thinks I'm being unreasonable. That hurt almost as much as her leaving. That night, as my mom helped put Marco to bed, he asked again about his mommy. My mom told him, "Sometimes people forget what matters most, but your papa remembers. He stays, that is real love." She later told me, in our culture, family means sacrifice and showing up even when it's hard. She has abandoned these values. Coming from my traditional mother, who initially blamed me, this validation meant everything. I'm meeting with a lawyer next week to file for primary custody and appropriate child support. Several attorney commenters gave me excellent advice on what to request. I feel stronger now with my parents' support, but I'm still terrified about our future in this town. I appreciate all your messages and support more than I can express, still processing everything, the Bihara. I never thought I'd be a single dad fighting for custody of my son while my wife builds a new life without us, but here we are. If anyone has experience with similar custody situations, I'm all ears. Now for the second update. Well, folks, it's been over a year since my last update, and a lot has happened. First, thank you all for the support and advice. It helped me through a difficult time. It's been 18 months since the divorce was finalized. I got primary custody of Marco, our family home, and Caroline is supposed to pay child support, though it often arrives late, if at all. The mediator secured these terms after seeing Caroline's indifference toward our son. Those of you who suggested documenting everything, thank you. Those records made all the difference during court. I've managed to expand my home cooking business into a small catering company that works around Marco's schedule. It's not very profitable, but it covers our expenses and allows me to attend his appointments and school events. Our neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, helps watch him occasionally when I have catering gigs that can't fit kindergarten hours. Marco has adjusted, as you'd expect, a young child to handle his mom disappearing from his life. He still asks about her sometimes, especially when he sees friends with their mothers at pickup. The child therapist many of you recommended has been helping us work through this and charges fees I can afford. The hardest part was explaining why his mom missed his last 2 birthdays after promising to come. Meanwhile, Caroline and Richard appear together at events in our small town's business community. I've seen photos of them at charity galas. Caroline's Instagram shows them traveling while she claims she can't afford the full child support payments. The times she has seen Marco have been brief and awkward. She often looks at her watch. Yesterday, my phone rang with Caroline's number. She never calls. She usually texts about support, so I answered right away. Her accent was gone. She was crying and asked if she could come over to talk. I hesitated, but agreed since Marco was excited to see his mother. When she arrived, she wore jeans and a sweatshirt. This wasn't the woman I knew from mediation. She sat on our couch and cried. Richard had been having an affair with a colleague 10 years younger. He told her he planned to leave her for someone younger during a partner's dinner, humiliating her in front of the firm. She alternated between cursing him and expressing regret about leaving her life at home. She looked at our living room and family photos she hadn't seen, including Marco's kindergarten portrait and his first day of school. Then she said, "I think we should try again. I made a mistake. We could be a family again." I was silent. Marco ran into the room and hugged her, and she patted his back. Marco said, "Mommy, I missed you." To those who suggested preparing him for disappointment, you were right. She greeted him, then turned back to me to talk about our future. He showed her drawings, but she glanced at them while asking about our future. I asked Caroline about his allergy medication, his best friend's name, and what book we read before bed. She said she could catch up on those details later. To clarify, since many are asking, Marco's allergies have worsened over the past year. He now carries an EpiPen and has a strict diet that requires careful monitoring, which I've learned to manage. Caroline hasn't asked about his condition during our limited communications. Caroline grew frustrated when I didn't embrace her suggestion of reconciliation. She said her parents think I'm being cruel and that everyone has rough patches in their marriage. One mistake? She abandoned our son, mocked my parenting, missed support payments, and disappeared from his life for over a year. I held back instead of saying this in front of Marco. Before leaving, she said her father was organizing a family meeting with relatives to persuade me to agree to reconciliation. After I put Marco to bed, he asked when his mother would return. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wonders if I'm being selfish by not considering reconciliation. Marco deserves a complete family, doesn't he? But I remember how she spoke about him like an afterthought, couldn't name his best friend or favorite book, and has shown her priorities lie elsewhere. Many of you warned against accepting someone back simply because they've been rejected elsewhere. My parents think I'd be crazy to take her back. My mom told me it's better to be honest about a broken situation than pretend everything is fine when it's not. I've been researching family counselors with the resources you sent because Marco will need support. I'm also preparing for the family meeting her father is organizing, though I'm worried about it. The saddest part is when Marco showed her drawings, he later told me he made them extra colorful so his mother would stay. He thinks her absence is his fault, even though I've tried to explain it's not. Right now, I need to focus on protecting Marco from disappointment while figuring out how to handle Caroline's change of heart and her family's intervention. Now for the final update. Final update on the Caroline situation. Thank you all for your support throughout this mess. I've read every comment on my previous posts, and your advice has been invaluable during this difficult chapter of my life. After Caroline left that evening, I received messages and calls from her family. Her dad, mom, both sisters, and some mutual friends all told me I should give Caroline another chance. Her dad called 3 times in one day to say he'd arranged a family discussion at my house. I felt cornered, so I called my parents. My mom said, "Forgiveness doesn't mean putting yourself back in harm's way." My dad said Marco deserved stability, not to be treated like an accessory. That night, after putting Marco to bed, I pulled out the journal I've kept since Caroline left. It documented every missed visit, every broken promise, every time Marco asked why his mother didn't want to see him. The pattern was painful. Caroline would promise visits, Marco would get excited, then she'd cancel with a work excuse. The last entry described how Marco had made a drawing for her birthday, but never got to give it because she skipped their visit. By Thursday evening, Caroline and her entire family were in my living room. Her parents, both sisters, her brother, and Caroline herself. Her father sat in the center of the couch and began by saying we should move on. He talked about fresh starts and family values. Caroline sat beside him nodding. One sister said everyone deserves forgiveness. The other accused me of being vindictive. Her mother said children need both parents. Caroline dabbed at her eyes with a tissue that stayed dry. They argued that I was unreasonable for not reconciling. Her father said I was punishing her for one mistake. I listened until Marco came out of the bathroom and ran to his grandmother with his drawing. He asked, "Grandma, is this enough to make Mommy want to visit me now?" He held up a drawing of our family. The room went silent. Caroline's mother looked at the drawing, and her father had no response. I went to my office and brought back a folder labeled Caroline with the date of our separation. I placed it on the coffee table. I said, "Before we talk about reconciliation, we need to address reality." I showed printed text messages where Caroline called motherhood a trap and called me embarrassingly domestic. I showed bank statements of missed child support payments and a calendar with every canceled visit marked in red. Caroline's mother read one of the texts and went quiet. I said, "This isn't about punishment. It's about Marco. He's not an option or an accessory. He's a child who's been hurt by someone who was supposed to protect him." Caroline said, "I shouldn't have to be punished forever for a few bad decisions. You're using Marco as a weapon because you're bitter." Her father said I was jealous of her success and too proud to accept another chance. I said, "I gave up a career as a chef to support Caroline. I moved here for her job. I managed our home and Marco's medical needs while she advanced her career. When she left our son too and mocked me for caring for him." I told Caroline, "You're here because Richard dumped you and you need somewhere to land. Marco deserves better than that." Her brother stood up. He said, "This isn't about reconciliation. It's about you needing support. Marco deserves better, and so do you." Caroline burst into tears and left. Her parents followed. Her sisters nodded before leaving. Only her brother stayed. He said, "I'm sorry. You're doing a great job with Marco." Then he was gone. After they left, I found Marco in his room. I told him that his mother wouldn't be moving back in, but that neither of us did anything wrong. I promised he didn't need to make drawings to deserve love. He was already enough. That night, after Marco fell asleep, I sat on my porch with a glass of wine and felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. There was still hurt, but I knew I made the right choice for both of us. The next morning, I got a text from Caroline's brother. He said he'd talked to their parents and helped them understand. He also said Caroline planned to take a job in another state. I felt relief mixed with sadness for Marco. In the weeks since, things have settled. Marco still asks about his mom occasionally, but less often. I've expanded my catering business to include weekly meal prep services, which has been profitable. Caroline has made no attempt to contact Marco since that night. Child support payments now go through automatic withdrawal. Edit. Many people asked about Marco's relationship with his maternal grandparents. I decided not to cut them off completely. We set boundaries, and they visit every other month. Caroline's brother has become an uncle figure to Marco and often takes him fishing on weekends. Looking back at my first post about Caroline leaving us, I barely recognized the person I was. The journey has been painful, but I found strength I didn't know I had because Marco needed me. I don't plan to post about Caroline again, but thank you for your support. Marco and I are going to be fine.